Welcome to Bay Area Psychology with Mary Crocker Cook.
Them that's got shall get, them that's not shall lose. So the Bible says, and it still be news. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own, that's got his own. Yes, the strong gets more, while the weak ones fade. Empty pockets don't ever make the grade. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own, that's got his own. Rich relations give crust of bread and such. You can help yourself, but don't take too much. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own, that's got his own.
Good evening. In 1971, Judith Wallerstein began a study of 60 middle-class families in the midst of divorce. The results of her 10-year longitudinal study of these families were presented in her landmark book, Second Chances, which clearly challenged long-held beliefs that divorce is a short-term crisis, that what is good for adults will be good for their children, and that children will bounce right back. In fact, Wallerstein documents that even small children experience powerful, adult-like feelings of fear, grief, anger, intense loneliness, loyalty conflicts, and guilt. Let's take a look at a few drawings about feelings drawn by children currently experiencing the effects of divorce. A particularly painful finding by Wallerstein observed that fewer than 10% of the children studied had any adult speak to them sympathetically as the divorce unfolded. Fortunately, there are programs being developed around the country to offer support to these children. Here in Santa Clara County, we have Kids Connection, sponsored by the YWCA. Kids Connection is a structured 6-week course providing education for both children and their parents to experience effective communication about the effects of divorce on the whole family. With us tonight is the program's founder, Dr. Terry Johnston, and local family law attorney, Cecilia Sobolewski. Welcome to both of you. Appreciate you joining us this evening. Well, we took a look at some pictures drawn by some children who have recently experienced the effects of divorce. And I'm wondering if you have any kind of comment about what you saw.
Well, now that I have had the opportunity to work with so many children through Kids Connection, I must admit that each time that we finish a series, I am more overwhelmed than the last to recognize how painful this experience is for the children and how seldom we realize that they're going through this. They hide so much. And they find it so difficult to talk to anyone, especially their parents, because they know their parents are suffering too.
Okay, so part of their instinct will be to protect their parents.
That's right.
And try to make it, not to make it any harder on them than possible.
In fact, many of them have, when they come into Kids Connection, have the sense that they're responsible, if not for the divorce, at least to keep their parents happy during this period.
Okay.
But then it goes beyond that also, because I think and I'm speaking outside of my field, but I think that a lot of these kids just never really faced themselves in the mirror to see exactly what it was that was going on inside of them. And through Kids Connection, they were able to explore these feelings. And they put them down on paper, and you see the sad faces, the happy faces, the child being held over the fire, ready to be dropped. You see these, and they may not have admitted that to themselves before.
That's right, and having an opportunity where somebody actually asks, and teaching their parents how to ask, I think is a very, very important component.
And I think that's one of the other things that happens with Kids Connection, because for many of these parents, they're already suffering enough pain and enough guilt about ending a relationship, and loss, because they've lost more than a partner. They've lost a dream of their marriage. And their kids sense that to talk more about any of their pain is to add to all that guilt. So the parents, rather than make their lives worse, tend to deny that anything's going on with their kids. They need not to see it to protect themselves.
Absolutely, because it would be overwhelming, I'm sure, to experience their children's pain at the same time as they're experiencing their own.
That's right.
I'm sure you see that when somebody enters the legal process, Cecilia. I know that you have had the experience both of being a child attorney as well as a divorce attorney, and I'm wondering if you have any comments about what you see when they come into your side of the system.
Well, there are times that there are people who have their own agenda, and they want to see certain things done without regard for the children. These people are people I try to convince that they also have to look at the children's perspective. In some cases, these people will never change. They may not hire me because they know that I would like them to look at the child's perspective or the child's best interest. However, sooner or later, they are going to find an attorney who will represent them the way they want to be represented. And in that case, you'll have a person who is trying to get their own agenda, no matter what it does to the children, and we have potential harm to the child. And that is why the court started appointing attorneys to only look out for the best interest of the children.
I think, to be perfectly fair, a lot of these parents, the kind you've referred to as those who have their own agendas without taking into consideration the needs of the children, some of them may believe that what they want is what's best for the children. But some of them have first, some of them haven't looked. They're, as I said, it's so difficult for them to accept that their children could be feeling pain because that other bad person is now out of their lives, when in fact the children love both their parents.
That's right, that their experience of each parent is different than my experience of another adult.
That's
we
right.
have a graphic which taken from a book called Divorce Recovery to take a look at some of the common feelings experienced by children when going through divorce. Let's take a look. We have listed guilt, hurt and resentment, conflict, fear or panic, loss of physical security, loss of continuity, and loss of stability of tradition. Which of those, I'm sure that you have seen in your work with the children, all of those.
Oh yes, it's so moving to listen to a child say, I don't know where we're going to live, or what if we don't have enough money and have to live on the street because Daddy always worked and now he won't be there. There are so many fears that we don't think the children have. It never enters the heads of the parents. We don't expect to have to explain to children, account to children for our actions, and yet the children are very bewildered and frightened and confused. And as I said, many of them do feel that it was their fault. You know, if I had only not gotten mad that night, if I'd only not stayed out late, or if I'd only done what they told me to do, maybe they wouldn't fight over me, and maybe they wouldn't get a divorce.
So there are times when we do see parents who, because of their pain and because of their anger with each other, perhaps sometimes direct some of that toward the children inadvertently. They're not even aware that their children are receiving the effects of that.
A lot of times it happens, it seems so innocuous when it happens that a person will be talking to a friend about his former spouse, and the children just happen to be in the next room. This person may be talking about his ex-spouse and be very, very strong with what he's saying. And he may not say something about the spouse or the ex-spouse mistreats them or does anything or hits them. He may just say, well, you know, that person never gets the children to me on time. Why can't that person ever be responsible? Things like that can be very damaging because the children pick up on that.
And then you compound it by telling the child you're just like your father,
Yes.
and the child knows you now actually express hatred for his father.
Yeah.
Makes that child feel terrible. Just
So,
terrible.
yeah, so identifying with the parent may not be a term of endearment
That's
at
right.
that point. Okay.
That's right.
But many parents, I mean, all of us, if we're in pain,
Yes.
find it much harder to look outside of our pain.
Yes.
With Kids Connection, that's one of the things we're trying to do, is to help parents see that even though they're going through this, they can take some time to look outside of themselves and just serve the needs of their children. Just look at what the kids are feeling.
Well, and my experience with this, with clients, is that they truly do want to do what's in the best interest of their
yes.
children. I mean, the majority of parents I've worked with, no matter how horrendous the situation might be, really were motivated from a positive place. It may not be experienced as positive by anybody else, but if you really talk to them about their agenda, often it really is a genuine attempt to look after the children and provide the best environment possible. Okay?
Yeah, and sometimes they just need some direction to find out exactly, you know, what the best interest of the child would be, or what the best thing for them to do at a particular time would be.
Okay. Because I imagine intervention with our children, it does depend on where they are developmentally. I mean, it's not
That's
as
right.
simple as, gee, you do all of these things all the time with all children. We are going to be taking a break here in a moment, and when we return, we will hear about the effects of divorce on adult survivors. Stay with us.